Hello and welcome and namaste from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Gautam Roy. Coming up over the next 1 hour. Iran and Israel halt attacks as Trump pushes ceasefire. Tehran warns of retaliation if strikes on Lebanon continue. Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlights the government's 12-year journey of welfare of the poor. Says upliftment of the downtrodden is at the core of India's transformation. The nation honours its brave hearts. President Draupadi Murmu confers 51 gallantry awards at Defence Investiture ceremony held at Rashtrapati Bhavan. Major earthquake off the Philippines kills at least 35. A dozen people are still missing. And India crushed Afghanistan with a record innings and 300 runs victory in the one-off New Chandigarh Test. Well, India's rise over the last 12 years under Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a globally acknowledged transformation. All indicators point to how a time-bound course has been charted to make a developed nation by the time it celebrates 100 years of independence in 2047. 12 years ago, a political shift transformed India's electoral landscape. In 2014, Prime Minister Modi led the BJP to a historic majority, ending 3 decades of coalition-era politics. As the Modi government completes 12 years at the centre, the Prime Minister says the journey has been defined by welfare, inclusion and empowerment of the poor. Here's a look at the government's key milestones and its vision for a Viksit Bharat or developed India.
The year 2014 marked a defining moment in Indian politics. After 3 decades, the country elected a government with a clear majority, its first since 1984. It was also the first non-Congress majority government to take the office at the centre. At its helm was Narendra Damodar Das Modi, beginning a political journey to reshape the national landscape. In a series of posts on X, Prime Minister spoke about the transformation in people's lives through various initiatives. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said the story of this period is one of transformation driven by the welfare of the poor. Reflecting on the journey, he said the government's guiding principle has been Antyodaya, ensuring development reaches those who are left behind for decades. From Janadhan accounts and direct benefit transfers to Swachh Bharat, Prime Minister Awas Yojana, Jal Jeevan Mission and Ayushman Bharat, Prime Minister said every initiative has been aimed at delivering dignity, opportunity and empowerment to millions. Prime Minister Modi also highlighted the role of technology in transforming governance. Through digital platforms and direct transfers, benefits are reaching the citizens transparently and efficiently, reducing leakages and strengthening trust. Calling Garib Kalyan a people's movement, Prime Minister said the collective effort is now powering India's march towards a Viksit Bharat. From welfare schemes and digital governance to infrastructure and financial inclusion, the Modi government says its 12 years journey has focused on taking development to the last mile. As India charts its path towards a developed India, government maintains that empowerment of the poor remains at the heart of its agenda. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, through mega initiatives like PM Gati Shakti, Pragati and Sagar Mala, the government is aiming to build an integrated multimodal infrastructure network to power long-term economic growth. More details in this report.
Over the last 12 years, infrastructure expansion has become a key pillar of the government under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Significant emphasis has been placed on developing highways, expressways, airports, metro networks, ports and high-speed rail corridors to strengthen connectivity and boost economic activity. The PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan is a comprehensive initiative to improve multimodal infrastructure connectivity across India's economic zone. Anchored on 7 key sectors: railways, roads, ports, waterways, airports, mass transport and logistics infrastructure, the holistic development plan involves an estimated investment of Rs 100 lakh crore. The plan uses a dynamic GIS platform developed by the Bhaskaracharya National Institute for Space Applications and Geoinformatics for real-time project mapping and integration of over 200 data layers. Launched in 2015, Pragati, or proactive governance and timely implementation, has fast-tracked projects worth more than Rs 85 lakh crore. Pragati ensures real-time coordination between the centre and states under direct prime ministerial supervision. Under PM Modi, India has witnessed a major push in expressway development. Notable examples include the Delhi-Dehradun Expressway. Inaugurated on April 14, 2026, this corridor reduces travel time between Delhi and Dehradun from 6 hours to just 2.5 hours. The 594-kilometer Ganga Expressway was officially inaugurated on April 29th this year. Built at an estimated cost of Rs 36,230 crore, the corridor reduces travel time between Meerut, part of the National Capital Region, and Prayagraj from 12 hours to roughly 6 hours. According to official data, India's national highway network expanded by nearly 61% between 2014 and 2025. Building upon the original 2016 Regional Air Connectivity Scheme, the Union Cabinet approved the launch and implementation of the Regional Connectivity Scheme, modified UDAN, for a period of 10 years from 2026-27 to 2035-36 with a total outlay of Rs 28,840 crore. Apart from strengthening domestic aviation infrastructure, the government has also expanded international air connectivity through the development of new global aviation hubs, including the Noida International Airport at Jewar. In the 2026 budget, the government has announced a Rs 16 lakh crore expansion blueprint to build 7 new high-speed rail corridors. Significant projects under execution include the Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail project, which is receiving technical and financial assistance from the government of Japan. India has become the third largest operational metro network in the world. India has a coastline of more than 11,000 kilometers. Building on this, Sagarmala initiative promotes port-led development. Around 845 projects, estimated at Rs 6.06 lakh crore, have been taken up under the program. These initiatives highlight the government's emphasis on strengthening connectivity, enhancing logistics networks, and developing modern infrastructure to support India's long-term economic expansion.
Now let's talk about India's journey over the last 12 years, the kind of progress it has made. We have with us senior journalist Shekhar, well-known political commentator as well. Shekhar, it's undeniable the kind of journey that India has had, being the fastest large economy for a long period, consistently, at least for 4 years. Before that, COVID blip had hit. But more than that, where is the transformation, according to you, most visible?
Well, I can see transformation at least in 4 thrust areas, which the Prime Minister set about in 2014 and further improved it in 2019. And after, coming to the third term, we are seeing even greater push, because we saw between the first year, 5 years were the years where lot of, as the Prime Minister himself put it, filling up of potholes. In that sense, things had gone to such a bad situation. So the first of the measures were some kind of a correctional. The second phase came when we started looking at really the four major thrust areas, as the Prime Minister himself called it. One is the Lok Seva, or the public service. Second is Sashaktikarana, that is empowerment. The empowerment of the poor, empowerment of the weaker section, empowerment of women. This was a thrust area. The third part was, where the a very hard look was taken at our, what is called the national, what you call nation first, the Rashtra Pratham kind of thing. So where the focus was on border security, building up of our defenses, empowering our armed forces with the best of weapons and equipment, and all these things happened in the third kind of thing. And one thing that started in 1014 and it's a completely ongoing, that is the Rashtra Nirman, which the Prime Minister calls it, the building of infrastructure, building of institutions. These are in the 4 years. So, but Prime Minister himself, as he has put out in his X tweet, the core, what I would call the core philosophy or the core driving force is that it must serve the people. It must bring about welfare of the people. That is why when you see at so many things have happened, it's very difficult, for any government to be moving on all areas. But this government has been at like this, that in everything, there is not one area or one sector that has not been touched by a new push, a new drive to see that the benefits of the government spending money reaches to the last mile, to the last person on the queue or Antodaya. So you can see a political philosophy that the Prime Minister has put in action is essentially about nation first and nation last. In the sense, every single scheme you would take up is about, it conveys all these four also, interestingly. Whether it is as a Lok Seva, whether it is Sashaktikarana, empowerment, or it is nation first, as well as Rashtra Nirman. There are innumerable examples you take. Now look at what has happened to schemes like Jan Dhan Yojana, PM Kisan Card, or you take Ayushman Bharat. You look at these schemes, all these elements you can see, which goes to show that the Prime Minister has approached the country's long-standing problems.
Yes,
with
250 million people have been brought out of multidimensional poverty as well. And let's talk about, more recent years. This decade itself, the Prime Minister himself called it a decade of disasters, where you saw disease, supply chain disruptions, conflicts and other economic headwinds hitting, and that period is still on. India has borne the brunt of it. It's stayed on top of the kind of fuel, energy requirements that has, but the rupee has taken a hit. But do you think, as far as India's journey towards progress and development is concerned, to become a developed nation by 2047, these will only be seen as mere hindrances, when you look at the larger picture?
Yes, Gautam, there has been too many a black swan movement, you saw first the COVID came, when we were setting right our financial system, post the demonetization, then recapitalization of banks after those bad debts. Now, after all that, came the COVID, and COVID was a severe hit on our economy, severe hit on the people, severe strain on the government resources, because straight away, for at least 3 years, you saw our economy sliding back. And that required injection of funds for each sector to make them stand up. And just as we were settling down on a growth story or a trajectory, now this two developments, two global conflicts, which has become global conflicts in the sense of their impact. One is the Russian-Ukraine war, which started in 22. The other is this the Iran conflicts. These two, which seem to be interlinked also in the sense, both have put a big pressure on our energy resources. As the Prime Minister said, yes, every crisis brings an opportunity. We came out through the crisis caused by the conflict. But this one is also hurting us more because of the fact, the previous empowerment, like the way gas cylinders were distributed to so many people, crores of people. That itself brought that we had to push up our LPG production, LPG availability, and our hope every time when we expect, the war would end, things would get back to normal, something or the other keeps it going, or something flats up. Even the Russian-Ukraine conflict, and in between you had the trade, how trade barriers came up, the saga of tariffs, and again the government had to step in to see how our entrepreneurs will find new markets. So one challenge after another has been coming. I mean, sometimes I wonder, yes, previous governments to face challenges. We had an oil crisis in 1973. But this time you notice how the world is itself impacted by this. And to a great extent, this government has tried to ensure that the full impact of this crisis, this energy crisis, is not completely falls on the people. Yes, prices of gas cylinders have been raised, prices of petrol, diesel. But if you look at the way the other countries have handled, some countries have gone up to 45% increase, per liter of petrol. But this government has somehow tried to shield the people by taking the hit on itself. Because what happens is when a government takes the hit, it has to keep going the welfare programs, it has to keep going what it is doing for women, for farmers, for healthcare system. That is something we need to understand. Why? Because often the criticism is, petrol prices have gone up, but somewhere you have to balance the budget. Yes, and that is why the Prime Minister came up with suggestion. I mean, travel less, don't, try to work from home. Of course, it was similar so that the pressure on energy requirement comes down so that the energies of, yes, we have good stockpile of resources, but at the same time, it cannot be denied. This kind of crisis keep coming up in a nation's journey. And each crisis brings us, now you see, one thing we are seeing because of the oil crisis, there is again a renewed spurt in the idea to go in for e-vehicles, electric vehicles. The government has been constantly encouraging promotion and purchase of electric vehicles. Now I can see that because the government had also come with a plan for multi-charging stations all over the country. Now, these did not get that kind of a thrust earlier. But now when people also realize that this dependence on fossil fuels cannot be forever and ever because you are depending on external source, more than 60% comes from outside. So crises have also come, but as the Prime Minister says, these crises are also enabling us to look for alternatives and to see an opportunity where we can again.
Yes, the latest is the launch of E85 fuel stations as well for flexi fuel cars. So that's how one has to stay nimble and perhaps pivot and adapt to the changing situation, which the government has been doing whenever it faces challenges, and challenges have been constant, particularly since 2020. Let's leave it there for the moment. Sheikh Haraya, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And still to come on DD India Newshour. The Kremlin dismisses the three European powers' proposal for direct peace talks with Ukraine as contradictory. And pro-Western incumbent Pashinyan's political party wins the Armenian elections.
We have one other neighbor, Pakistan, and there the response is very, this doesn't apply because when somebody practices cross-border terrorism as the central feature of the policy towards us, that you have to also ensure there are consequences, that it is not something which will be cost-free. So when you are comparing eras, I think the one thing this country is very clear on, nobody wants to see again what happened at 26/11. That 26/11 was cost-free. That should never happen again.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, hopes of de-escalation emerged in West Asia after Iran announced the cessation of attacks on Israel, signaling a possible pause in direct hostilities. However, fresh concerns remain after Israeli forces said they intercepted 3 projectiles fired from Lebanon. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has said both Israel and Iran are seeking an immediate ceasefire as efforts continue towards a broader peace framework. More in this report.
Even as hopes for de-escalation briefly emerged in West Asia, fresh exchanges of fire and renewed warnings are keeping the region on edge. Iran on Monday announced a cessation of attacks on Israel, signaling a potential pause in direct hostilities that have gripped West Asia. However, Israeli forces said that they intercepted 3 projectiles fired from Lebanon. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian says that Tehran remains committed to negotiations. Iran, however, has warned that any further aggression, including in southern Lebanon, would invite a much stronger response. Tehran also blamed the US for the latest escalation.
America has direct responsibility in any action that Zionist regime carries out in relation to violation of regional peace and security against Iran.
Earlier, Iran and Israel exchanged fire for the first time since a fragile ceasefire. Iran launched overnight missile attacks while Israel struck military targets inside Iran. Among the targets hit was the Karun Petrochemical Company in southwestern Iran as Israel pressed ahead with retaliatory strikes.
Last night, the Iranian terror regime violated the ceasefire after 2 months. It opened fire and launched attacks towards Israel. This morning, the Israeli army carried out 2 waves of strikes against targets belonging to the Iranian terror regime. In the first wave, dozens of fighter jets struck air defense systems that constitute the regime defensive shield. In the second wave, we attacked the petrochemical complex in Masar in southwestern Iran. This facility produced materials and components essential to regime's missile program.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's response appeared to ignore earlier calls from US President Donald Trump, who had urged restraint. Meanwhile, the US President on Monday said that both Israel and Iran are seeking an immediate ceasefire while negotiations for a broader peace framework continue. However, Trump made it clear that sanctions relief and access to frozen Iranian assets would remain off the table until a final agreement is reached. Meanwhile, Israel has again shut crossings into Gaza, including Rafah and Karem Shalom, citing security concerns after the Iranian strikes. Despite renewed ceasefire efforts, continuing military exchanges and rising rhetoric suggest that tensions in West Asia remain far from over. Nishchoy Roy's report for DD India.
Now, amid rising tensions in West Asia, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz on Monday vowed to continue military operations in Lebanon despite warnings from Iran of severe consequences. Katz said Israeli forces would keep targeting Hezbollah positions and warned that Beirut's Dahiyeh district would face retaliatory strikes for every attack launched on northern Israel. And India has expressed deep regret over renewed attacks in West Asia. India's Ministry of External Affairs has termed the developments as a matter of serious concern for the global community. In a statement, the External Affairs Ministry called on all parties to immediately de-escalate tensions, protect civilians, and conclude ongoing negotiations for a diplomatic solution. Further, the ministry has emphasized the urgent need to restore peace and stability in the region. And the head of the UN nuclear watchdog has urged Iran to re-engage with inspectors and provide details about its nuclear sites damaged in US and Israeli strikes last year. International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Rafael Grossi told the agency's Board of Governors that communication with Tehran remains largely broken and called for the full implementation of nuclear safeguards. Meanwhile, the United States, backed by Britain, France and Germany, is pushing for a resolution demanding that Iran disclose information on the bomb facilities and the whereabouts of its enriched uranium stockpile. Iran has rejected the move, accusing Western powers of politicizing the issue and warning that pressure tactics could undermine diplomatic efforts. And back home in the interministerial briefing on Monday, the government assured citizens that despite the ongoing situation in West Asia, supplies of crude oil, LPG and natural gas remain stable. Addressing the media, Additional Secretary to the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Praveen Malkhanuja, said that there have been no reports of dry out at LPG distributorships. LPG delivery backlogs have also been reduced to less than 4 days.
Despite the ongoing situation in West Asia, supplies of crude oil, LPG and natural gas, they remain stable. And we have adequate stocks of petrol, diesel and LPG which are available in the country. we haven't had any news of dry out at LPG distributorships. LPG backlogs have now reached less than 4 days. Online LPG cylinder bookings have reached 99% and DAC, delivery authentication code, is about 96%.
European leaders gathered in London, joining Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky for crucial talks at Downing Street. France's Emmanuel Macron and Germany's Friedrich Merz stood with Britain to reaffirm support for Ukraine and push for peace negotiations with Russia. The Kremlin, however, dismissed their proposals as contradictory, even as Zelensky continues to appeal for more ammunition to strengthen Ukraine's defences. DD India's Rahul Padhyay brings us more.
On Sunday, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer hosted European leaders at Downing Street, bringing together Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky, Germany's Friedrich Merz, and France's Emmanuel Macron. Following their meeting, Britain, France, and Germany, known as the E3, reaffirmed their backing for Ukraine's Zelensky's proposal for direct talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin to secure a ceasefire, with Europe playing a central role. The European leaders and Zelensky set out the conditions that would need to be in place to secure a just and lasting peace. These conditions are an immediate halt to fighting, talks starting from the current line of contact, legally binding security guarantees for Ukraine, including a multinational force, immobilization of Russian assets until compensation is paid, and safeguarding European security interests. They stress that international borders must not be changed by force. Zelensky also urged Western allies for more ammunition to bolster Ukraine's air defenses against Russian strikes. Kremlin reacted sharply on Monday. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov accused European leaders of contradictory approaches in their peace efforts.
Furthermore, I would like to point out that French President Macron, British Prime Minister Starmer, and German Chancellor Merz are trying to talk peace with simultaneously emphasizing their intention to assist the Kyiv regime in producing new type of weapon to continue the war. Isn't this inconsistent? Isn't this a contradiction? And doesn't this best demonstrate the true intention of the European capitals?
On the ground, Ukraine's commander, Alexander Syrsky, reported that Ukrainian forces have recaptured more than 600 square kilometers of territory this year, including gains in May that outpaced losses. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan's Civil Contract Party secured victory in parliamentary elections with 49.8% of the vote. Preliminary results showed on Monday. The win is seen as a strong public endorsement for his pro-Western foreign policy shift away from Russian influence. Pashinyan pledged to pursue closer EU and US ties while maintaining balanced relations with Moscow and called for peace with Azerbaijan. The opposition's Strong Armenia alliance trailed at 23.3%. European leaders, including France's Macron, have congratulated Pashinyan on the result. And Prime Minister Modi has also congratulated Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan on the Civil Contract Party's victory in parliamentary elections. In a post on social media, Prime Minister Modi wrote, and I quote, "Congratulations to Mr. Nikol Pashinyan on the impressive victory of the Civil Contract Party in the parliamentary elections. The renewed mandate reflects the unwavering faith and confidence of the Armenian people in your leadership and vision. I eagerly look forward to close cooperation with you to further deepen the warm and historic bonds of friendship and collaboration between India and Armenia." End quote. A powerful 7.8 magnitude earthquake in the southern Philippines on Monday killed at least 35 people, toppling buildings and sparking tsunami warnings across the region. National Disaster Authorities said at least a dozen people are still missing, with 134 sustained injuries. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. ordered an immediate disaster response in Mindanao, with agencies directed to prepare relief supplies and evacuation centers and be ready for possible rescue operations. The quake, which triggered tsunami warnings across several countries, hit early in the morning about 20 kilometers off the coast of Sarangani province, with tremors felt strongly across Mindanao and 420 kilometers away in the city of Manado on the Indonesian island of Sulawesi. And still to come on DD India Newshour. We'll be speaking with an expert guest about where does the truce after the latest round of hostilities between Iran and Israel leave the quest for peace in West Asia.
I think today the leadership has clarity. I think the country has clarity. We have much sharper defined sense of national interest. Where China is concerned, yes, we went through a difficult period starting with 2020 when peace and tranquility in the border areas was disturbed. But in the last year, I think things have settled down. I would say the Russia relationship has remained steady. Even as Russia's relationship with other countries have undergone a big change. I would say Japan is an example again of a very steady relationship. In all our diplomatic accounts, where has been the biggest improvement? I would say without question it's in Europe.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Gautam Roy, and before we go any further, another look at our top stories. Iran and Israel halt attacks on Trump as Trump pushes a ceasefire. Tehran warns of retaliation if strikes on Lebanon continue. Prime Minister Modi highlights the government's 12-year journey of welfare of the poor, says upliftment of the downtrodden is at the core of India's transformation. The nation honours its brave hearts. President Draupadi Murmu confers 51 gallantry awards at Defence Investiture ceremony held at Rashtrapati Bhavan. A major earthquake off the Philippines kills at least 35 people. A dozen are still missing. All right, let's take you back to our top story, which is all about the latest round of hostilities. This time around, not the US and Iran, but Israel and Iran. And right now, of course, both sides are saying that they're stopping their offensive against each other, their attacks on each other, but both have issued out warnings as well. Iran saying that if Lebanon is attacked again, meaning the Hezbollah is attacked again, it will punish Israel even harder, and Israel saying that it will continue its campaign against the Hezbollah regardless of what anybody else is saying, including what's implied is Donald Trump. Let's bring in Ambassador Anil Kumar Trivignath with us now, senior former diplomat. Good evening to you, Ambassador Trivignath. What do you make of what's going on, and what do you make of this Israeli defiance? Donald Trump, who has so far had some sort of grip on Netanyahu, even despite that angry conversation which was widely reported just about a week or so back, Israel doesn't seem to be listening to him.
There are two things. One is that they can't do without the United States, which is extremely important for them to conduct the military and the political campaign. And I mean, that is absolutely a given. And they also know that whatever they do, the United States support is not going to waver because of the Jewish lobby, because of the strategic interests of the United States. So very often, I think Prime Minister Netanyahu is able to take liberties with President Trump. I mean, we have seen what happened between President Trump and this, because Trump wants to get out of this war as soon as possible. And according to the reports that are coming and his own social media posts, the deal between Iran and the US was pretty close. The fact is that the Israelis are not happy about that deal in the first place. So if you have seen since the 7th of April, when we had this ceasefire, so-called ceasefire, Israel has continued to occupy greater areas in Lebanon. And this time even has crossed the Litani River, despite 3 or 4 rounds of direct discussions with Lebanon for ceasefire. And even when the ceasefire was agreed to with the intervention of President Trump and he spoke to Hezbollah as well, we have seen that the Israelis are continuing, because for Tel Aviv, the most important thing is to ensure that from both sides, whether it is in Gaza or which is in Lebanon, they are able to secure a buffer state between Israel and its northern and southern borders. So that's precisely what he is trying to do. Now, of course, he has heard him. He has heard President Trump. He tries to persuade him that I must attack Iran. So he was successful in that regard, because then February 28th, President Trump joined him in attacking Iran. But then the Americans have realized that this was not their war, and they wanted to just get an exit very quickly. It has not happened till now. And President Trump is in trouble at the moment, domestically and internationally as well. So he wants this deal to be through as soon as possible. But Israel, from Israeli perspective, I don't think they are very happy about the deal, and will continue to put a spoke in it.
And what does Iran want? Because, let's look at the flip side as well. If Donald Trump can at least tell Netanyahu to lay off, why can't Iran tell the Lebanon, which is believed to be one of its proxy arms, to lay off as well? Instead of doing that, Iran goes after Israel when Israel goes after the Hezbollah.
No, what happens is, that Iran and Israel have about 1,000 kilometers between them. So in order to maintain its asymmetric advantage in the region, Iran has been supporting these 4 H's, as they call. One is the Hezbollah, which is the biggest, most powerful proxy for Iran. The second is, of course, Hamas, which has been vastly decimated. Third is Houthis in Yemen, which is now threatening to close the Bab al-Mandab and all, and all the Red Sea traffic. They've already stopped it for the Israelis. And then the fourth is, of course, in Iraq, which is also saying that if the United States attack again, they will get into the game and will attack the US bases and all within the thing. So there are these popular mobilization forces, which are also proxies of the Iranians. Now it provides Iran a continuous leverage in the region. And therefore, Iran had made it a condition that if the war stops, the war against Lebanon, or for that matter, against Hezbollah. They don't talk about war against Hezbollah. They talk about war against Lebanon. But if you see the Lebanese government, it's pretty helpless and weak. It is not able to enforce its diktat or remit over the Hezbollah, which is the most powerful section of the Iranian society today, militarily and otherwise. And in the southern part, they hold sway in the country, and they are able to fight the Israelis all along. So Lebanese government per se has become a collateral in this, and they become more of a bystander because their army is not that strong, the economy is very weak. Israel is wanting to take and create that buffer by occupying it. It is not now, it has been going on since about 2 decades. So Lebanon is in a very peculiar situation in an official manner. But what Iran is doing essentially is trying to save Hezbollah from complete decimation by getting into the game. And if you remember that Hezbollah was the first one which claimed that they are going to fight if Iran is attacked. And they have been fighting ever since and opened another front against Israel. But Israeli army is strong, and they have been able to capture quite significant territory at the moment.
And let's look at the equation of the US itself, because it's looking for a deal which would be better than what was there earlier, the one that Trump walked out of, the one that Obama had struck, the JCPO deal, wherein a lot hinges on what happens to the uranium that the Iranians have. Their stockpile, which Trump at one point said has been vaporized, then said it's buried underneath a lot of rocks or something. And now through the IAEA, fresh pressure is being built on Iran to have access to it, to get to how much is it left, and where exactly is it, and how it can be dealt with. And Iran clearly says nothing doing. So where does that leave the peace process?
Well, I think that this is perhaps the more easiest part of the whole game, all deal that we are talking about. The reason
relatively speaking,
yes, by February 27th, the Iranians had actually agreed to give in the most in this regard. Number one, they said that we will never acquire a weapon, so they were agreed to that. Secondly, they were also said that they are entitled to some 3.67% enrichment for civil nuclear purposes, which is their right, and they would like to continue with that because they can't give up the full thing. Then about 440 kilograms of enriched uranium, how to degrade it, where it is to be kept. Of course, there is a tremendous trust deficit between the United States and the Iranians, so they don't want it to be given to the Americans. But I believe that there was some kind of understanding even then. They might give it to Russians or the Chinese. Maybe the Americans don't want that either. So President Trump continues to insist, but this has not become the major priority today for them. They except getting some kind of, and that's why they are saying that we sign an MOU, and within the next 60 days, everything else will be decided. But for that, Iran has put some conditions of release of funds and simultaneously vacation of this and stopping all wars. So those are the primary conditions, and that's why President Trump has spoken to Hezbollah, trying to pressure Israel, and also trying to pressure Iran in the process, and through other countries like China and Russia, which is also happening at the same time. So Iranians also want a peace. And I think that they will be agreeable to continue within the limit of NPT. Whether this whole deal will be any shade better than what was JCPOA, which President Trump quashed, I doubt very much, because that is very much there. But today, this whole thing has become far more complicated because of the maximalist kind of demands both sides have been putting. But I think during the discussions, they are arriving at quite a bit of a deal at the moment so that they can move forward.
Okay. Well, let's not forget that the biggest stake that the world has in all this is the Strait of Hormuz is reopening. And how can we get to a position where at least the Strait of Hormuz is reopened, and then the rest of the framework, the process can move forward?
Well, I think that this is precisely the discussion going on at the moment at the MOU that they have agreed to, which means both sides will lift the embargo. And actually, if you remember, President Trump last week or 10 days ago had very clearly stated that all ships are going back, the Strait of Hormuz is open and all that from his side. And that's been one of the conditions. But then you know that the war in Lebanon intensified. And that's when the Iranians backed off. And they are again back on the table, but telling that, so President Trump is involved in trying to stop the other war also, so that whatever ceasefire has been attained. As far as Iran and US, Israel are concerned, I think that they'll continue to suffer from this tremendous insecurity and distrust against the other, and with the MAD syndrome, mutually assured destruction syndrome. That is not going anywhere. Even if we have any kind of a deal, even a few years it will last, and we will see once again it come back to haunt us. So at the moment, the President Trump's main effort is somehow to get the deal going so that he can move out of the place and out of this thing, and which, of course, Israel is not very happy about.
Right. Well, let's hope that progress is made nonetheless. A better sense prevails all around, and especially these kind of hostilities that keep on, spoiling everything, all the progress that is made, that at least stops. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Ambassador Triganayat.
Thank you. Thank you.
Highlighting India's rapid advancements in healthcare, Union Minister Piyush Goyal has said that the country's pharmaceutical sector is poised for major developmental milestones over the next 5 years. Speaking at the PharmExcel Global Ambassadors Meet, he noted that the global community witnessed India's true capabilities in healthcare during the COVID-19 pandemic.
We are celebrating 12 years of the Modi government. During these 12 years, taking our industry to international markets has been an important element of this journey. We have recently entered into 9 free trade agreements, and I see a number of countries represented here with whom we've done free trade agreements in the recent past. Today, we cover more than 50 countries with free trade agreements.
India's Health Secretary Punya Salal Srivastava on Monday briefed journalists from international news agencies and foreign media organizations on the findings of the National Family Health Survey 6, highlighting significant improvements in India's health and nutrition indicators. According to the findings of the survey, India's total fertility rate remains stable at 2.0, while institutional deliveries have risen to 90.6%. Full immunization coverage has improved to 87.1%, with over 95% of children receiving vaccinations through public health facilities. The survey also recorded a decline in child stunting by 17% and severe wasting by 32%, reflecting better nutrition outcomes. Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana continues to strengthen financial protection and healthcare access across the country. Now, the first phase of the 2026 Defence Investiture Ceremony was held in New Delhi on Monday, in which 51 awards were conferred by the President of India under Shaurya Chakra, Veer Chakra and Kirti Chakra categories. Deepika Mahato's report brings us more details.
The 2026 edition of the prestigious Defence Investiture Ceremony 2026 Phase 1 was held at Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi on Monday. The awards were conferred by President Draupadi Murmu, and the event was graced by Vice President C.P. Radhakrishnan, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, along with other ministers. A total of 51 medals were conferred in 3 categories: Shaurya Chakra, Veer Chakra and Kirti Chakra. The Gallantry Awards were presented to personnel from the Indian Armed Forces, Central Armed Police Forces and State and Union Territory Police Forces. Awards were also conferred in posthumous category. The ceremony not only honored the courage and valor of the brave hearts, but there were moments where tears of happiness rolled down the cheeks of those who received the posthumous awards. Sepoy Janjal Praveen Prabhakar's Kirti Chakra in posthumous category was received by his mother and wife. Their tears, while remembering their loved one and the brave heart, made each one present emotional. The President hugged the mother, who came to receive the award, and wiped their tears. Such moments not only remind us of the ones who dedicate their lives to the nation, but also serve as a constant reminder that the nation is in safe hands of those whose unwavering commitment for the country is unmatchable. Deepika Mahato's report for DD India.
At least 8 workers were killed and several others injured after a large quantity of molten steel leaked from the heat facility at the Visakhapatnam steel plant in Andhra Pradesh on Monday. The accident took place inside the plant's steel melting unit, where molten steel reportedly split during operations, leading to a major industrial incident. Workers present in the vicinity suffered severe burn injuries in the mishap. The injured were immediately shifted to nearby hospitals for treatment, while emergency response teams and plant authorities launched rescue and relief operations at the site. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed grief over the mishap in Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh. In a post on social media, he said, and I quote, "Saddened by the mishap at the Visakhapatnam steel plant, condolences to those who have lost their loved ones, praying that the injured recover at the earliest. The local authorities are providing all possible assistance to those affected. An ex-gratia of 2 lakh rupees from PM NRF would be given to the next of kin of each deceased. The injured would be given 50,000 rupees. The sacred relics of Arhat Shriputra and Arhat Mahamoggallana, the 2 foremost disciples of Lord Buddha, have drawn thousands of devotees to Mongolia's Ganden Monastery in Ulaanbaatar. Brought from India for a special 10-day exposition, the relics are being viewed not merely as sacred objects of veneration, but as symbols of the enduring spiritual bridge between India and Mongolia. DD India's Tanvi Taneja had an exclusive interaction with the chief abbot of Ganden Monastery about it. Listen in.
I have with me the chief abbot of the Ganden Monastery, His Eminence Kambo Namun Khan de Jarzandroch, the head of the Ganden Monastery, the head of the Center of Mongolian Buddhists. Thank you, Kambo Namun Khan, for speaking to DD India. India and Mongolia are spiritual neighbors, and as these relics have come, sacred relics from the Holy Land of India, how do you see the cultural and historical bonds between the 2 countries today?
Buddhism was introduced to Mongolia on 3 major occasions throughout history. The earliest introduction came directly from India to the Mongolian lands nearly 2,000 years ago. Since then, Buddhism has become an integral part of the spiritual and intellectual foundation of the Mongolian people. Through the profound influence of Buddhist teachings, Mongolians have developed a distinct worldview, cultural identity, and a way of life that set them apart while preserving their unique heritage.
Many Mongolians visit India for pilgrimage, education and healthcare. What more can both countries do to strengthen this people-to-people connections, especially among young population because of the social media overload that we see today?
In recent years, an increasing number of Mongolians have been traveling to India. As mentioned earlier, many undertake pilgrimages to the sacred sites associated with the Buddha's life and enlightenment. Others travel for medical treatment and healthcare, reflecting the growing people to people connections between our two countries. While technology offers many benefits, it can also distance people from meaningful personal interaction and genuine human connection. In this context, the Buddhist teachings that came to Mongolia from India remain as relevant today as ever. The Buddha's teachings on compassion, loving kindness, and caring for others provide valuable guidance for addressing many of the social and spiritual challenges of our time. These timeless principles help cultivate inner peace, strengthen bonds between people, and contribute to the happiness and well being of society as a whole.
What message would you like to give to the people of India about Mongolia that they already may not know?
Such precious occasions are powerful symbols of the profound spiritual connection and close friendship that continue to unite Mongolia and India. These events clearly demonstrate the exceptional level of cooperation, trust, and cultural affinity between our two countries. Therefore, on behalf of Gandanteg Chengling Monastery, the monastic community, the Buddhist devotees throughout Mongolia, I would like to express our deepest gratitude for your kindness, generosity, and all that you have done for us. May the friendship between the peoples of Mongolia and India continue to flourish.
I would like to thank you, Kamunamun Khan, for speaking to DD India and sharing your valuable insight and wisdom with our viewers. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Chief Abbot of the Gandhan Monastery, here in Ulaanbaatar, with camera person Saurabh Shukla, Tanvi Taneja for DD India.
The Indian Meteorological Department has issued heavy rainfall warnings for several parts of the country as the southwest monsoon continues its steady advance, raising concerns over flooding, waterlogging and landslides in vulnerable areas.
With southwest monsoon rains gaining momentum, the India Meteorological Department issued alerts for many districts in the coastal states of Kerala and Karnataka. Heavy rains lashed Kerala, especially the northern districts, on the weekend, triggering a series of fatal accidents, land cave-ins, and structural collapses that claimed 5 lives, including 3 children. The southwest monsoon remained active in Kerala. IMD has issued an orange alert for Kozhikode, Kannur, and Kasargod districts. Alerts are in place for many districts for Tuesday and Wednesday as well. The IMD department has also advised fishermen not to venture into the sea as squally weather is likely to prevail along and off the Kerala coast. Lakshadweep is also expected to receive widespread rainfall. Weathermen also issued red alerts for 2 coastal districts of Karnataka. A red alert will be in force in 5 districts on Tuesday and in 7 districts on Wednesday, indicating increased rainfall as the week progresses. Authorities have urged residents to remain cautious as intense downpours could disrupt transport and daily life. The monsoon is expected to advance further into additional parts of Maharashtra, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and Odisha over the next few days. Meanwhile, marine warnings remain in force over parts of the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal. Strong winds and rough sea conditions are expected, prompting authorities to advise fishermen against venturing into affected waters. In the north, a fresh western disturbance is likely to trigger isolated thunderstorms and gusty winds over Delhi, Punjab, Haryana, and Rajasthan later this week. The India Meteorological Department predicts that northeast India will receive normal rainfall during the June September monsoon season, while the rest of India anticipates a weaker, below normal season. The northeast remains a highly favorable exception, with the monsoon gathering momentum across the country. Disaster management agencies and local administrations are on alert, closely monitoring weather conditions and preparing for any emergencies. Bureau Report, DD India.
Talk about cricket first. India have registered a commanding and biggest win as far as tests are concerned in the one-off test that took place at New Chandigarh, defeating Afghanistan by an innings and 300 runs. Batting first, India declared their innings at 564 for 8. In reply, Afghanistan were bowled out for 152 in their first innings and were asked to follow on. The visitors were unable to recover in the second innings as well, collapsing for 112 runs as India sealed a dominant win inside 3 days. Debutant spinner Manav Sutar starred as a match haul with a match haul of 7 wickets, producing a memorable performance on debut. Washington Sundar also made an impact with the ball, picking up 4 wickets in Afghanistan's second innings. With the test wrapped up, both the teams will now turn their attention to a 3-match ODI series. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. Just scan the QR code on the screen to download the app right away. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.